Why does a government refuse to publicly discuss one of its most elite military units, yet the entire world knows its name? How did the world's most secret special forces unit become the most legendary? And why did the United States and many other nations use the British SAS as the blueprint for building their own elite forces? Today we'll uncover the incredible story of the legendary Special Air Service. The British government has a very strict policy regarding the Special Air Service. They simply do not talk about them. If you ask the Ministry of Defense about an SAS operation, you will get a wall of silence. Yet despite this absolute refusal to acknowledge their existence on the record, the SAS is arguably the most recognizable special forces unit on Earth. When the United States wanted to create Delta Force or Israel formed Sarit Mall, they looked directly at the SAS as their blueprint. The unit is in a unique operational bind, legally required to stay off the record while serving as the most recognized special operations force in history. That tension goes all the way back to their founding. In 1941, during the North African campaign, a British officer named David Stirling pitched an idea for a highly mobile commando force. He called it L Detachment Special Air Service Brigade. The name was entirely fabricated. There was no brigade and no air service. It was a calculated piece of disinformation designed to trick Axis intelligence into thinking the British had a massive paratrooper regiment operating in the area. The reality was just a handful of men driving heavily armed jeeps deep behind enemy lines, launching lightning raids to destroy German aircraft parked on desert airstrips. From the beginning, the unit's tactical effectiveness was inseparable from its ability to deceive. Before they ever pulled a trigger, they were an exercise in misdirection. To maintain that level of covert operational capability after the war, an officer named John Woodhouse formalized a selection process in 1952. Today, it remains one of the most punishing military filters in the world. It begins with the aptitude phase in the Breen Beacons of Wales. Over 4 weeks, candidates are pushed to their physical limits, culminating in the endurance test, a timed 40-meter march over the peak of Pen y Fan carrying a 25-pound pack. Those who pass are immediately sent into the jungles of Beas or Brunei. Here the focus shifts entirely to navigation, patrol formations, and extreme survival isolation. The final test is psychological. Candidates are hunted down, captured, and subjected to a grueling 36-hour resistance to interrogation exercise where they must withhold information under intense pressure. Out of a starting class of around 200 hosts, only about 10% survive all the phases to actually earn the title of an SAS Blade. This identifies the few individuals capable of operating under extreme physical and psychological stress without a support network. It ensures that every operator is a self-contained unit capable of maintaining the mission even when completely cut off from the outside world. The internal structure of the regular Army component 22 SAS divides its members into 4 operational squadrons A, B, D, and G. Zooming in on a single 65 operator squadron, it breaks down further into the 4 specialized 16-man troops: boat, air, mobility, and mountain. This hypermodular setup means they can take a Halo parachuting expert from an air troop and a deep desert driver from a mobility troop and seamlessly combine them to fit the exact requirements of any deployment. By keeping the footprint microscopic and specialization high, the British government can project highly lethal power anywhere on the globe without leaving a visible trace. For decades, that blueprint worked flawlessly, from deep jungle patrols in Malaya to covert operations in Oman to Task Force Black, taking 3,500 insurgents off the streets during the Iraq War. They operated effectively in the dark, but their public anonymity was permanently shattered in May 1980 when a black-clad operator was photographed climbing the balcony of the Iranian embassy in London. Following a terrorist takeover of the building, the SAS counter-terrorist wing executed a precise hostage rescue operation. Because it happened in the middle of a major city, it was broadcast live on global television. The siege proved to the world that they were the most capable tactical operators alive. It also meant they could no longer pretend to be a myth. That spotlight has followed them into the modern era, particularly during the heavy deployments of the post-9/11 war in Afghanistan. In the post-9/11 era, the same autonomy that made the regiment lethal was cited as a primary factor in a series of alleged abuses. The very darkness that protected their operations was now being scrutinized as a shield for misconduct. In 2023, the British government launched an independent inquiry led by Lord Justice Hayden following an investigation by the BBC's Panorama program.
The inquiry is examining allegations that between 2010 and 2013, SAS operators repeatedly executed unarmed detainees and even children during nighttime raids, with reports of squadrons actively competing against each other for high kill counts. The unit's strictest operational rule Their impenetrable wall of classification had effectively blocked the oversight required to prevent these actions. To justify these killings, operators allegedly developed a methodology of placing drop weapons, like AK-47s or grenades, next to the bodies of unarmed victims, making it look as though they had posed an immediate threat. The allegations point to an institutional cover-up. Internal evidence of these crimes was systematically withheld from military police, with leadership reportedly arguing that an investigation would disrupt operations and damage troop morale. The scope of the controversy is expanding too. In 2024, the Ministry of Defense acknowledged that 5 SAS members are currently under investigation for similar war crimes committed during deployments in Syria. The unit's motto, stitched beneath a flaming sword on their beret, is "Who dares wins." They were founded on the idea that daring to operate in the shadows could change the course of a war. Now the regiment's legacy depends on how it survives the glare of the light.
War no longer starts with a missile strike. In what strategists call the fourth age of conflict, the opening salvos are ambient and hybrid. A deep fake goes viral. A supply chain is quietly compromised. A digital narrative manipulates an election. Only after the battle space is thoroughly prepared does the kinetic violence begin. To counter threats across the globe, the United States relies on the most lethal special operations forces in its history. Organized under a single umbrella, the U.S. Special Operations Command, or SOCOM. The entire purpose of SOCOM was to force different military branches to work together. It was born from the ashes of Operation Eagle Claw in 1980, where a hostage rescue in Iran failed largely because Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine elements couldn't communicate or coordinate effectively in the desert. Today, SOCOM oversees dozens of distinct elite units, each operating with its own recruitment pipeline, mission history, and internal culture. These units are the product of decades of evolution, having been optimized for the specific tactical requirements of 20th century warfare. The U.S. Army Rangers serve as the military's premier light infantry rapid assault force, the kinetic spear. Their modern lineage tracks directly back to World War II, where units like Darby's Rangers spearheaded brutal amphibious landings and raids behind enemy lines. By the Vietnam War, that mission set expanded deep into the jungle. Small volunteer long-range reconnaissance patrols spent weeks operating behind enemy lines, perfecting the stealth and ambush tactics that define today's 75th Ranger Regiment. On an entirely different track are the Air Force Par Rescue Men, or PJs. Their focus is confined to a single critical function: personnel recovery and sustainment. To execute full-spectrum rescues in hostile territory, PJs have to be masters of multiple disciplines. They are Halo skydivers, expert combat divers, and advanced trauma medics tasked with infiltrating the most denied environments on Earth to bring isolated personnel home. Finally, Mars pulls from the legacy of the World War II Marine Raiders to inject an expeditionary mindset into the community, specializing in foreign internal defense and specialized raids. These units are unrivaled in their specific domains. However, they operate as powerful disconnected nodes. This hyper-specialization creates a strategic paradox. We have the world's most capable specialists, but their rigid fragmentation has become a vulnerability in a gray zone world demanding total integration. In 1942, General Wild Bill Donovan established the Office of Strategic Services, architecting a command based on the total convergence of capabilities. The OSS deployed units like the Jedburgh teams into occupied Europe. These were flat, agile units that combined paramilitaries, intelligence officers, communications experts, and academic polymaths under one roof. Their philosophy relied on a structural overlap. Intelligence was not gathered merely to pass along to an operations team. It was structurally embedded into the mission itself to generate immediate strategic effects on the ground. When the OSS disbanded in 1945, its unique DNA was severed. The kinetic action-oriented arm became the Army Special Forces, while the intelligence and espionage arm evolved into the CIA. The structural fusion that made the OSS so adaptable never fully returned. The ambient complex conflicts of the Fourth Age require us to revive that integrated OSS DNA. We don't need to replace our current special operations forces. Instead, we need a mechanism to properly orchestrate them. Military strategists propose a strategic integration force to knit together the capabilities of units like the Rangers, PJs, and Mars. Mars. This hub would fuse kinetic strikes with diplomatic maneuvering, intelligence, and commercial tools, allowing commanders to manage the narrative across physical and digital battlefields. In the 1940s, the OSS was the answer to total war. Today, a strategic integration force must be our answer to total complexity. By fusing action with insight, we can ensure America's elite forces remain sharp, adaptable, and lethal in the gray zones of tomorrow.